helpless, ashamed, broken. Don't stop. For one hard second, he looked like the kind of man decent folks would hang without asking twice. A grown man on his knees, hands set between a young woman's legs, out in the open sun where no one could hear her if she screamed. Her legs were spread where pain had forced them open, not where she had chosen. She had dragged herself through the reeds on one bad leg, and that was the way the pain had left her, and his hands were moving lower. If anyone from Missoula rode past that riverbank right then, they would not have waited for an explanation. They would have reached for a rifle, but the girl did not scream. She grabbed a fistful of dry grass instead, her fingers shaking and her breath breaking in her throat. "Don't stop," she said again, barely more than air. Elias Crowder froze, not from shame, from confusion. This was someone begging him to keep going. He looked down at her leg again, not at the way it lay open, not at the torn cloth, at the injury. Left side, just above the knee, swollen, dark, wrong. He had set bones before, seen joints slip out and lock. If he walked away now, and that leg stiffened wrong, she would never walk straight again. He slid one hand under her thigh, the other steady along the outside. Careful, slow. Watching her face, not her body. Her eyes never left him. He started to pull his hands back. That was when she shook her head. A tiny movement, weak, but certain. Don't stop. Now he understood, or at least he understood enough to keep going. The cloth tied around her leg was wrong. Too tight in one place, too neat in another. Not how a person wraps a wound when they're scared and bleeding. More like something placed hidden. He hooked a finger under the edge of the bandage. She gasped. His hand stopped. Her eyes widened. Then she forced the smallest nod. Yes. Do it. He loosened the knot. The outer cloth came away, damp with river water and dirt. Underneath was another layer. Cleaner. Tighter. Deliberate. Elias felt something shift inside his chest. He peeled it back. Paper, folded, pressed flat against her skin, protected from water, protected from eyes. It was the one place desperate people still hoped others would be too decent to search. He stared at it for a beat. Then he pulled it free. Her body sagged the moment it left her leg, like she had been holding herself together around that one thing. "What is this?" he asked. Her lips moved. No sound came, only breath. Elias opened the edge just enough to see ink, lines, numbers, survey marks, land, not money, not a letter, land. That was when he heard it. Faint, far, hoofbeats. He turned his head across the stretch of river and yellow grass. Two riders moved along the bank, small against the heat haze, unhurried. Certain. Elias looked back down at the girl. Her eyes had found them too, and now there was something new in them. Not just fear. Recognition. "They're coming," she whispered. He folded the paper closed. For a moment, he considered putting it back, walking away, letting whatever trouble this was pass him by like a storm he did not need. But he looked at her leg again, at the swelling, at the way her hand shook even when she tried to hold still, at the dust stuck to tears she did not have strength left to cry. He pulled his coat open and slid the folded paper inside, close to his chest. Then he reached for the blanket. He did not look at her while he pulled it back down over her legs. He turned his head slightly away, gave her what little dignity the world had not already taken. Only then did he slide one arm beneath her shoulders, the other under her knees, careful of the bad leg. She was light, too light, like something that had been worn down piece by piece. When he lifted her, she caught his shirt weakly, not to stop him, to hold on. "Who did this to you?" he asked. Her eyes flickered, not to him, but past him, toward the riders, toward something deeper than them, something older, something that had been hurting her long before she reached that river. She swallowed and gave him an answer that did not fit the picture at all. Not who you think. Elias shifted her weight and started toward the tree line, away from the open bank, away from the sun, away from the men who were getting closer with every second. In his vest, the folded paper pressed against his chest like a second heartbeat, and in his arms, he carried a girl who was not just running from men. She was running from something that wore a name, a house, and a kind of power that did not need to shout to be obeyed. The hoofbeats grew a little louder. Elias did not look back again. If those riders were just hired hands, this would end in blood. If they were wearing badges, it could end in a rope. And if that paper meant what he thought it did, then helping her was not just saving a life. It was stepping into something that could burn everything he had left. He tightened his hold on her just enough to keep her steady. She closed her eyes, but her hand stayed locked in his shirt. Trusting him, or having no other choice. And somewhere between the river and the trees, with the sun beating down and the sound of hooves closing in, one question settled in like a stone. If the men behind them had the law, and the truth was hidden in his vest, then by the time they reached Missoula, would Elias Crowder be known as the man who saved her life, or the man they had every right to hang? Elias did not run. Men who lived long in the mountains learned that running only made you easier to track. He walked fast instead, straight into the trees, each step placed with care, each breath kept steady, like nothing was wrong, but everything was wrong. The girl in his arms was fading in and out, her grip on his shirt tightening, then slipping, then tightening again. Behind him, the hoofbeats were still there, not close, not yet, but steady. Always steady. That meant patience, and that meant certainty. Elias moved deeper into the shade where the ground turned softer, where hooves would leave less of a clear story. He angled uphill, not down. Most men followed water. He went away from it. After a few minutes, he stepped over a fallen pine and lowered himself behind it, setting the girl down as gently as he could. Her eyes opened again. Fever was coming in now. He could see it in the way her gaze drifted, then snapped back. "You stay with me," he said, low and firm. She tried to nod. It barely showed. He took a quick look back through the trees. Nothing yet, just heat, light, and distance. Still, he knew they were there. He turned back to her leg. The swelling had grown. If he left it like that, she would not walk for weeks, maybe never ride again. He took a strip of cloth from his pack, folded it tight. "This is gonna hurt," he said. She gave a weak breath that might have been a laugh. "Everything already does." He set his hands again. One above the joint, one below. Firm, steady. He waited 1 second. Then he pulled and turned in one clean motion. A dull shift. Her body jerked. A sharp cry broke out of her before she could stop it. Then silence, then shaking. Elias held the position a moment longer, then eased off. "There," he said. "That should hold." She was breathing hard now, but something had changed. The leg lay straighter, less wrong. He wrapped it again, this time simple, nothing hidden, nothing fancy. When he finished, she caught his sleeve. Her voice was barely there. "You shouldn't have done that." He looked at her. "Done what?" "Taken it." He knew what she meant. The paper. "You hid it," he said. "That makes it important." She closed her eyes for a second, like she was deciding how much to give him. When she opened them again, there was no strength left for lies. "If they find that on you," she said, "they won't ask questions first." He almost smiled at that. "That makes 2 of us." Her lips moved again. "One of them," she whispered. "He wears a badge." That landed hard. Elias did not move for a moment, just looked at her. A badge meant law. Or at least something close enough to it that nobody else would argue. "You sure?" he asked. She gave the smallest nod. "I've seen him at our house." Our house. That was the first time she said something that sounded like a place, not just a past. Elias leaned back slightly, thinking, 2 riders, one with a badge, hunting a half-dead girl, and a piece of land paper wrapped in cloth like it was worth killing over. That was not a small trouble. That was the kind that reached into town, into offices, into men who signed things and made them real. He looked down at her again. "You got a name," he said. She hesitated, just long enough. Then she answered, "Clara." He waited. No last name came. That told him enough. "All right, Clara," he said. "You can lie to me later if you feel like it. Right now you stay awake." That almost got another faint breath of a laugh out of her. Almost. He stood again and lifted her back into his arms. This time she settled quicker. Less fight, more trust. Or maybe just less strength to resist. Either way, she held on. He moved again, cutting across the slope, keeping to the darker patches where the trees grew thick and the ground broke up underfoot. After a while, he heard it. Voices. Faint, behind them. Men talking like they were not worried about being heard. That confirmed it. They did not think she could get far. They did not think anyone would take her. But one of them knew how to read broken brush and drag tracks better than most men alive. Elias kept moving, a little faster now. Not enough to make noise, just enough to stay ahead. Claire stirred in his arms. "They won't stop," she murmured. "I know the type," he said. She shook her head weakly. "You don't know this one." He glanced down at her. Her eyes were open again. Focused now. "Through the pain. That paper," she said. "It doesn't just show land." He said nothing. Let her use what breath she had. "It shows it was taken." She finished. Ooh, there it was. Not just property. Proof. That explained the riders. That explained the badge. That explained why she had been left to crawl instead of buried. They needed something from her. And they had not gotten it. Elias adjusted his grip and pushed forward through a narrow line of brush that scratched at his arms and slowed his steps. Ahead, the trees thickened. Beyond that, higher ground. And somewhere past that, his cabin. Not safe, but safer than open ground. Behind him. The voices faded, then rose again. Still coming. Still patient. Claire's hand tightened once more in his shirt. "If they catch us," she said, each word taking effort, "they'll say you took me." He let that sit for a second. That was clean, simple, easy to believe. A mountain man. A half-conscious girl. No witnesses, no questions. "Then we don't let them catch us," he said. She looked at him like she wanted to believe that. Like she had not believed anything in a long time. He stepped over a narrow stream and started up the final rise toward the ridge line. The air cooled just a little. The shade deepened. For the first time since the river, it felt like they might have a chance. Not a good one, but something. Clara's voice came again, softer now. "If you take me back," she said, "it won't end." He looked ahead. "Nothing does," he answered. A few more steps. Then a few more. And finally, the trees opened just enough for him to see the path that led toward his place. He did not slow. Did not look back. Whatever was coming was already on the move. And now it was moving toward him. If this story has you now, subscribe and stay with me. Pour yourself something warm and tell me what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. Because from here on, it gets harder. And the real question is this. If the law is already behind them and the truth is sitting in his vest, how far can a man like Elias carry both before one of them breaks him first? Elias reached his cabin just before the light began to soften. Not sunset yet, but close enough that the heat was finally starting to loosen its grip. He stepped inside without slowing, pushed the door shut with his heel, and slid the wooden bar across. Only then did he let out a breath he had been holding since the river. The cabin was small. One room, rough table, iron stove, a narrow bed against the wall. He set Clara down on the bed as careful as a man could set anything that fragile. She winced, but did not cry out. Pain had not been new to her. He poured a little water into a tin cup and held it near her lips. "Slow," he said. She drank, coughed, then drank again. Color came back to her face, just a little, enough to bring her eyes into focus. She looked around the room, taking it in. "You're safe here," Elias said. He did not say it soft. He said it plain. She studied him for a second, then gave a small shake of her head. "No place is safe. she said. Elias did not argue. He had seen enough places prove that point. He moved to the shelf, grabbed a small cloth sack, and came back with dried herbs and a bottle of something clear. He worked while he talked, not looking at her too much. Fever's coming up, he said. Gonna try and keep it down. She watched his hands. Steady. Sure. Not a man guessing. A man who had done this before? You're not just a trapper, she said. He gave half a shrug. Man learns what he needs to. He soaked the cloth, wrung it out, and laid it across her forehead. She closed her eyes for a moment when it touched her skin. Relief, small, but real. He sat back on the edge of the table, not crowding her. The room went quiet. Outside, the world carried on. Wind through pine, a distant bird, nothing that sounded like riders. Yet, you said one of them wears a badge, he said after a while. Her eyes opened again. She looked at the ceiling first, then at him. I didn't say which kind. Elias leaned forward slightly. There's only one kind that matters out here, Tay, he said. One people listen to. She swallowed. You think that means he's right? He shook his head. It means he's dangerous. She turned her head a little, looking toward the door. They'll come to town first, she said. Ask questions. Let them, Elias said. She looked back at him. They'll say I ran. Maybe you did. They'll say you took me. He met her eyes. Then they'll have to prove it. For a second, something almost like a smile touched her face. Faint, gone just as quick. You don't know how things work there, she said. Town's got its own rules. Elias nodded once. I know enough. He reached into his vest and pulled out the folded paper, held it between his fingers. You gonna tell me what this really is? He asked. Or am I supposed to guess wrong and get us both killed? She stared at it. Not like it was paper. Like it was the last piece of something that had already broken. It shows land, she said. I figured that part. It shows where the water runs in summer, she went on. And who has the right to it? That mattered more than land. Water meant cattle. Cattle meant money. Money meant power. And it shows it was changed, she added. There it was again. Changed. Elias watched her closely now. By who? He asked. She hesitated. Not because she did not know, because saying it out loud made it real. My family, she said, finally. That sat heavier than anything else she'd said so far. Family. Not strangers, not outlaws, blood. Elias leaned back slightly. That a long story, he said. She let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. It's a short one, she said. Just ugly. He could believe that. He had seen enough of both. She shifted on the bed, trying to push herself up a little. He moved without thinking, steadying her shoulder. She stiffened at the touch, then relaxed when she realized he was not holding her there, just helping. He let go the moment she found her balance, and that was the first thing all day that felt honest to her. Easy, he said. She settled back again, tired, more than tired, worn down. My father, she said after a moment. He was the sheriff. Was the in Missoula. That name had once meant something. Now it mostly meant a grave and a silence nobody wanted to touch. Elias did not react right away and just listened. He died 3 months ago, she went on. They said his horse threw him. Elias had heard stories like that. Horses did throw men, sometimes. You don't believe that, he said. She looked at him. No. One word. Solid. Certain. He nodded once. All right. Silence came again, but this one felt different, not empty. Building. Elias stood and moved to the window, just enough to look out without showing himself. Trees. Shadows. Nothing moving. Still, too still. He stayed there a second longer than needed. Then another. Then he saw it. He did not turn right away, just spoke. Low. Even. Clara, he said. She answered without opening her eyes. Yeah. You got any more truths you're holding back, he said. Now would be a good time. A pause, then her voice, quieter than before. There is one thing. He finally turned from the window, looked at her. And whatever she was about to say, he knew before she said it, it was going to change everything again. Because the riders had not just followed them to the mountain, they had found his cabin. Elias did not reach for his rifle. Not yet. He stood still by the window, watching that small shift in the trees like a man watching a snake move through grass. Behind him, Clara's breathing slowed, then tightened again. She knew. Even without seeing it, "They found us," she said quietly. He did not answer right away, because saying it out loud made it real. And real things had weight. Real things got men killed. He stepped away from the window and moved across the cabin, each motion calm, measured, like he had all the time in the world. He checked the back wall. No second door, just the small rear opening he used for smoke in winter. Too tight for carrying her through fast. Front door only. That meant one way out, or one place to stand. He picked up his rifle. Checked the chamber. Loaded. Set it by the table, not pointing at the door. Just close enough. Clara watched him now, fully awake despite the fever. "You said you don't run," she murmured. He gave a small nod. "Not unless I have to." "And now?" she asked. He looked at her. Now? That was the whole question. Run and leave everything behind, or stay and make a stand that might not last 5 minutes. He walked back to her and crouched slightly so she did not have to strain to see him. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried to push herself up. Pain hit fast, hard. Her breath caught and her hand grabbed the edge of the bed. "Not far," she said. That was enough. Elias thought for a second, then another. Choices were never clean out here. Just better and worse. He moved to the corner, grabbed a long canvas coat and laid it beside her. "When I say you wrap this around and stay low," he said. She frowned slightly. "You sending me out alone?" He met her eyes. "If I wanted you gone, I would have left you at the river." That landed. She nodded once. No more questions. Outside, a branch snapped. Not loud, but close. Closer than before. They had cut the distance. Elias straightened, then stepped toward the door. He stopped just short of it, not opening, listening. Boot on dirt. Slow. Careful. Not rushing. A man who thought he had control. A second set of steps circled wider, moving toward the side of the cabin. 2 of them. Just like before, Elias spoke without turning. "Clara, yeah? You said one wears a badge." "Yes." He rested his hand lightly on the door bar. "Then we don't get to make mistakes." Silence answered him. The kind of silence that agreed. A shadow crossed the thin line of light at the bottom of the door. Then a knock. Not hard. Not polite. Just enough to say they were done waiting. Elias did not move. The knock came again. Then a voice. Older. Calm. "This is Deputy Owen Pike," the man said from outside. "Open up." There it was. A name. Not just a badge. A man with standing. A man who could turn this into something official real fast. Elias glanced back at Clara. Her face had gone pale again. Not from the fever. From recognition. "You know him," Elias said quietly. She nodded. "He comes to the house. House, not home." That told him everything he needed to know. The voice came again, a little sharper now. "We know she's in there," Pike said. "No need to make this harder than it has to be." Elias looked at the door, then at the rifle, then back at Clara. Hard choices, no clean ones. He reached down and lifted the bar. Slow. No sudden sound. The door creaked open just enough for him to stand in the gap, blocking the inside from view. Sunlight hit his face. Outside stood a man in a dust-covered coat, hat low, one hand resting easy near his belt. Behind him, off to the side, another man held a rifle loose, not aimed, but ready. Deputy Pike studied Elias like he was looking at a tool he might or might not need. "Afternoon," Pike said. Elias gave a slight nod. "Afternoon." Pike's eyes moved past him, trying to see inside. Elias shifted just enough to block the line. "You're a long way from town," Pike said. "So are you." Elias answered. That almost pulled a smile from the deputy. Almost. "We're looking for a young woman," Pike said. "Hurt, confused, ran off from her family." Elias said nothing. Let the man talk. Pike took a step closer. "Now," he went on, "if you've got her in there, best thing for everyone is you hand her over. Simple, clean. Sounded right? That was how men like him worked. Made bad things sound reasonable." Elias rested his hand against the door frame, not gripping, just there. "And if I don't?" he asked. Pike's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. "You don't want to make this a problem," Pike said, "because once it is, it stops being about her." There it was, not a threat shouted, a fact placed on the table behind Elias. He could feel Clara's eyes on his back, waiting, trusting, or maybe just hoping. He looked at Pike for a long second, then spoke. "She don't look confused to me." Pike's jaw tightened, just a touch. "That your call," he said. Elias did not answer, did not step aside, did not reach for the rifle either, just stood there, between them, between what was easy and what was right. And for the first time since this all began, the man with the badge lost a little of that calm, because now he understood something simple. Elias Crowder was not going to hand her over. And that meant the next move would not be a conversation. It would be something else. And the only question left hanging in the hot air between them was this. When the first shot came, who was going to fire it first? Nobody moved. Not Elias. Not Deputy Pike. Not the man with the rifle off to the side. For a few seconds, the whole world narrowed down to that doorway, that strip of dirt, and the weight of what each man might do next. Then the second man shifted, just a little, but enough. His rifle came up, not fully aimed, just higher. Ready. Elias saw it. He did not reach for his own gun. Not yet. Because once a gun came up on his side, there would be no stepping back from it. Pike noticed it too. "Easy," Pike said without looking back. The man paused, lowered the rifle just a touch. Still ready, always ready. Pike stepped closer to the door. Close enough now that Elias could see the lines in his face. Not young, not old. A man who had been making decisions like this for a long time. "You don't seem like a fool," Pike said. "That girl in there's trouble you don't need." Elias leaned his shoulder lightly against the door frame. "Most trouble shows up that way," he said. Pike let out a slow breath. "You don't understand what you're holding," he said. That word again. Holding, not helping, not protecting, holding. Like Clara was something owned. Elias did not like that. "Then explain it," he said. Pike studied him, weighing how much to say, or how much he needed to say. "She belongs with her family," Pike said. "She's not well." Elias almost smiled at that, and almost. "She walked out of there on a busted leg," he said. "Doesn't look too confused to me." That tightened something in Pike's jaw, just for a second. Then it smoothed out again. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Pike said. "And you're making it sound cleaner than it is," Elias answered. Silence again, short, heavy. Then Clara's voice came from inside, weak, but clear enough to carry. "I'm not going back." Pike's eyes flicked past Elias. Sharp now, focused. "There you are," he said, like a man who had just confirmed what he already knew. Elias did not move, did not turn, just stayed where he was, between them. "Clara," Pike called out, tone shifting softer, almost patient. "You've had your run. That's enough." No answer, just her breathing. Then, quieter. "I'm not signing anything." That changed it. Not the words, the meaning. Pike's calm slipped, just a little. "That's not your decision," he said. "It is," she answered. There was more strength in her voice now than there had been a minute ago. Not much, but enough. Elias heard it. So did Pike. And the man with the rifle. Everything shifted a notch tighter. Elias spoke without looking back. "You didn't tell me that part," he said. Clara did not answer. She did not have to. Elias already understood. This was not about bringing her home. This was about a signature, a name on paper, something she refused to give. Pike stepped closer again. Now there was no space left between him and the door. "You step aside," Pike said. "Low now, no more pretending." "And we walk her out of here clean." Elias looked at him. "That don't sound clean to me." Pike's eyes hardened. "You think you're the first man to get in the middle of something like this?" he said. Elias shrugged slightly. "Don't much care about the others." That did it. Pike took one half step back. Just enough. Elias saw the shift before it happened. The change in weight, the drop in patience. He moved first, not for the rifle, for the door. He slammed it shut and threw the bar down in one motion. Outside, boots hit dirt hard. The second man moved fast now, circling. No more quiet, no more waiting. A shot cracked through the wood, splintering the frame just inches from Elias's shoulder. Clara gasped behind him. Elias grabbed the rifle from the table. Now it was real. No badge, no talk, just men trying to take something, or someone. He stepped to the side of the door, keeping low. Another shot tore through the wall, higher this time, blind fire, trying to hit anything that moved. "They're not waiting," Claire said, breath shaking. "No," Elias answered. "They're not." He moved to the small window, angled the rifle just enough to see without showing himself. A flicker of movement. There, he fired once. Clean. Measured. A shout came from outside, and then a hard drop in the dirt. It would slow him, maybe, for a minute. Not more. He pulled back, reloaded without looking, hand steady and mind clear. But this was not about winning. This was about getting out. He looked at Clara. "You can move at all?" he asked. She pushed herself up again. Pain hit, but she stayed up this time. "I can try," she said. That was all he needed. He moved to the back wall, kicked open the narrow rear opening, boards cracking just enough to make space. Not pretty, not easy, but possible. "You go first," he said. She slid off the bed, nearly fell, caught herself on the table. Strong enough. Barely. Outside, another voice shouted. Closer now. Angrier. "Pike." "This ends now," he yelled. Elias helped Clara toward the opening. One step, then another, every second counting. Behind them. The front door shuddered under a heavy hit. Wood straining. Not long now. Clara turned her head toward him as she reached the opening. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He did not answer right away, because the truth was simple and heavy. Then he said it. Because they shouldn't be the ones who decide. Not about you. Not about me. Not about what gets called right just because the wrong people say it loud enough. She looked at him for a second, like she had not heard that in a long time. Then she pulled herself through. Elias turned back once, just long enough to grab the coat, the canteen, and the rest of his cartridges. The front door cracked. Wood splitting. Voices right there now. He moved to the opening. Paused 1 second. Just one. Then slipped out into the trees behind his own home, leaving everything else behind. Smoke would come next. Or fire. Ahead of him. Clara leaned against a tree, trying to stay upright. Behind him, the cabin groaned under another hit, and in his vest, the paper pressed harder than before. Because now it was not just trouble, it was proof. And proof got people killed faster than lies ever did. Elias took her arm and pulled her forward into the deeper woods. No path, no trail, just distance. But as the first crack of the door finally gave way behind them, one thing settled in clear and cold. They were no longer head of the hunt. Now they were in it. And the next time those men found them, it would not be at a door. It would be in the open, with nowhere left to hide. They did not stop running until the smoke started. At first it was just a smell, faint, like something old burning. Then it thickened, darkened. By the time Elias glanced back through the trees, a thin line of gray had already climbed above the ridge where his cabin stood. He did not slow, did not say anything, but Clara saw it in his face. "They burned it," she said. Not a question. He nodded once. That was fast. She swallowed. They don't leave loose ends. That made sense. Men who carried badges and still fired through walls did not worry about property. They worried about silence. Elias kept moving, angling them deeper into the forest where the ground broke uneven and roots twisted underfoot. Harder to track, harder to follow. Clara stumbled. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy," he said. "I'm fine," she answered. She was not, but she kept going. That counted. After a while, he slowed just enough to let her breathe. Not a full stop. Never that. Just a shift. Enough to keep her from collapsing. "You need to tell me everything now," he said. "No more holding back." She leaned against a tree, chest rising fast, sweat cutting lines through the dust on her face. For a moment, she looked like she might shut down again. Then something changed. Not strength. Decision. "My grandmother," she said. Elias waited. Agatha Whitmore. The name landed heavier than most, not because he knew her, but because of how Clara said it. Careful, tight, like the name itself could hear. "She runs everything now," Clara went on. "After my father died," Elias nodded slightly. "That the house you mentioned?" "Yes." She looked down at her hands. "They say she saved the family after my mother passed." A pause. "Truth is," she took it. That tracked. He had seen that kind of thing before. Not always with guns, sometimes with papers, sometimes with silence. "What about your father?" he asked. Clara's jaw tightened. "He found out about the land." There it was again. Land. Water. Power. "He said the boundaries didn't match the old surveys," she continued. "Said someone had changed them." Elias leaned a little closer. And then he died," she said. Flat. No hesitation. No doubt. "He wasn't thrown," she added. "He was pushed." The forest felt quieter after that. Even the wind seemed to pull back. Elias let that sit. Then he asked the question that mattered. "You got proof?" Clara looked at him, then at his vest. "The paper you took," she said. "That's part of it. There's more." Of course there was. There was always more. "Where?" he asked. She hesitated. Not long, but enough. "In town," she said. "Hidden where they wouldn't think to look." Elias almost gave a dry smile at that. "Seems like they think of a lot," he said. Her lips pressed together. "Not everything." He studied her. This girl had crawled half dead to a river with proof tied to her leg. She was not guessing. She knew. That made her dangerous. More than the men chasing her. "Who else knows?" he asked. "No one I trust," she said. That answered more than the words. Elias shifted his weight, listening. Nothing close yet, but that did not mean safe. "They'll spread out," he said. "Cut us off before we get near town." She nodded. "I know." He looked ahead, toward the lower slopes, toward Missoula. A place he usually avoided, now the only place that might finish this, or end it. "You said one wears a badge," he said. "You sure about that?" She met his eyes. "I grew up around them." No hesitation. That settled it. This was not just trouble. This was the kind that wore law like a coat. Elias took a slow breath, then reached into his vest and pulled out the folded paper again. He opened it fully this time. Lines, marks, water routes, boundary shifts. Even without knowing every detail, he could see it. Something had been moved. On purpose. He folded it back up. Careful. Precise. "This gets you killed," he said. She gave a small, tired nod. "I know. And you're still carrying it." She looked at him, not scared now. Just honest. "It's the only thing they can't take from me if I keep it moving." That was a strange kind of strength. Not loud, not proud, just stubborn enough to survive. Elias slipped the paper back into his vest. Close again. Like before. Then he looked at her. "From here," he said, "we don't stop till we reach town." She let out a breath that might have been relief, or dread, hard to tell. "They'll be waiting," she said. "Probably." he answered. She pushed herself off the tree, unsteady, but upright. Then we better not be late. That almost sounded like a joke. Almost. Elias took a step forward, then another, leading. She followed, one step at a time. Behind them, the smoke kept rising. Ahead of them, the land opened slowly, leading down towards roads, fences, and people who asked questions. But as they moved, one thing stayed heavy in the air between them. Not the men behind, not the town ahead. Something else. Something she had not said yet. Elias glanced at her. You said there was one more thing, he reminded. She did not answer right away. They walked a few more steps. Then she spoke. Quiet. If we go into town, she said. We're not just walking into them. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? She looked ahead, eyes fixed. We're walking into my family. That was bad, but not the worst part, because the way she said it made one thing clear. The people hunting her and the people waiting in town were not two different sides, that they were the same. And the moment Elias stepped into Missoula with her beside him, he would not be choosing between right and wrong. He would be choosing who had the power to decide what right even meant. They reached the edge of town just before dark. Missoula sat low in the valley, quiet in that way places get when the day is ending, but trouble has not shown itself yet. Smoke from cook fires drifted slow. A wagon rolled somewhere far off. Elias slowed before they stepped out from the trees. He did not like walking straight into a place where other men made the rules. Clara stopped beside him, leaning just a little on a fence post. Her strength was holding, but not by much. This is where it changes, she said. Elias glanced at her. It already has. She gave a faint shake of her head. No, she said. Out there, it was just us and them. She looked toward town. In here, it's everyone. Elias scanned the road. No riders in sight. No one watching too closely, yet. He stepped out first. Clara followed. Slow, steady. Trying to look like someone who belonged. They walked past the first few buildings without trouble. A general store. A blacksmith. Two men talking by a wagon who barely looked up. But Elias felt it. Eyes. Not all at once. One here, one there. People noticing something was off. Not enough to act, but enough to remember. Keep your head down, he said quietly. I've been doing that my whole life, she answered. There was no pride in it, just truth. They moved deeper in, closer to the center, where the real trouble would be. Clara slowed again. Too obvious. Elias nodded. Then where? She looked ahead, toward a narrow street off the main road. Land office, she said. That's where they changed it. Of course it was. Paper did not move itself. Men did, and men needed places to do it. They turned. The street was quieter, less traffic, less noise, good place for quiet work and quiet crimes. Halfway down, Claire stopped. Her hand tightened on his sleeve. Wait, she whispered. Elias followed her gaze. Across the street, two men. Not moving, not talking, just watching. One of them turned slightly, enough for the light to catch metal on his chest. A badge, not Pike. Another one. That made two, maybe more. Elias did not change pace, just kept walking, past them, like he did not care, like he did not see. Clara kept her eyes forward, breathing shallow, controlled. They passed. No one stopped them. No one called out, but Elias felt it. The shift, the message sent without words. They were seen. And now they were marked. They reached the land office. Small building, closed door, windows dark. Locked, Elias said. Claire stepped forward anyway. Her hand went to the side frame, felt along the edge, then lower. She pressed something, a soft click. The door gave. Elias looked at her. You been here before? She nodded once. My father brought me. He used to tell her that if papers ever started lying, the truth would be hidden close by, not far away, and he had shown her once how the clerk kept a spare latch release tucked in the frame. He opened the door slowly. Inside, it smelled like paper and dust, old wood, ink. The kind of place where decisions got written down and never forgotten. He shut the door behind them. Clara moved straight to a shelf in the back. No hesitation, no searching. She knew. She reached behind a stack of rolled maps and pulled out a thin ledger. Worn, used, hidden. She held it like it mattered more than anything else in the room. "This is it," she said. Elias stepped closer. "That proves it," she nodded. "Original boundaries." He took a quick look. Even without reading every line, he could see the difference. Marks that did not match the paper in his vest. Two versions of the same land, only one could be true. Footsteps outside, then slow. Measured. Not passing by, then stopping. Elias closed the ledger, fast. "Not just us," he said. Claire's grip tightened on the book. "They knew we'd come here." He nodded. "Or they made sure we'd have to." A trap was one thing. A place designed to pull you in was another. The door handle moved. Once. Twice. Then a voice. Calm. Cold. Familiar to Clara in a way that made her shoulders go stiff. "You've always had a habit of hiding things where you think I won't look," the woman said. Not loud, not angry. Certain. Clara's face drained of what little color it had left. Elias looked at her. "You know that voice," he said. She nodded. Barely. "My aunt," she whispered. And if Judith had come herself, Claire knew Agatha was somewhere behind the whole thing, steady and certain as ever. Judith, that meant one thing. If she was here, then the one behind all of this was not far. The handle turned again, slower this time, like whoever stood outside was in no hurry at all, like she knew there was nowhere left for them to go. Elias shifted his stance slightly, not reaching for his rifle yet, not giving anything away, but ready. Always ready, always, because this was no longer chase through trees, no longer a door in the mountains. This was inside town, inside walls, inside a place where paper could hang a man just as quick as a rope. And as the door finally began to open, one truth settled in hard. The people hunting Clara were not just willing to break the law, they were the law. And now they were standing on the other side of that door. The door opened slow, not forced, not rushed, like the person outside already owned the room. A woman stepped in first, well-dressed even for the end of a long day, dark coat, gloves still on, posture straight like she had never once had to hurry in her life. Her eyes went straight to Clara, not to Elias, not to the room. Only Clara. "There you are," she said, soft, almost warm. That was worse than shouting. Clara didn't move. The ledger stayed tight in her hands. "Aunt Judith," she said. No fear in the words, but no comfort either. Just something old, something worn down. Judith Hale closed the door behind her without turning around. Two men stepped in after her. One of them Elias recognized, Deputy Pike. The other kept near the wall, rifle low but ready. No one spoke for a second. Judith took a few slow steps forward. Her eyes finally shifted to Elias, measured, calm. Like she was deciding what kind of problem he was. "You've made this more complicated than it needed to be," she said. Elias did not answer. He had learned long ago that some people used words the way others used ropes. He was not about to hand her one. Judith looked back at Clara. "You've been through enough," she said. "Come home." Clara's grip tightened on the ledger. "This is my home," she said. That almost made Judith smile. Almost. "No," Judith said gently. "This is a building." That was the difference between them. Clara spoke from truth. Judith spoke from control. Elias shifted just a little, putting himself between Clara and the others without making a show of it. Judith noticed. Of course she did. "They told me you might try something like this," she said to Elias. "Men like you always think they are doing the right thing." Elias met her eyes. "Sometimes we are," she tilted her head slightly, "and sometimes you get in the way of things you don't understand." That might have been true, but not today. Clara stepped forward, just enough. "This ends now," she said. Her voice was weak, but steady. Judith's attention snapped back to her. "No," she said. "It doesn't." Clara lifted the ledger. "Original boundary," she said. "Before they were changed." That landed. Even Pike shifted slightly behind Judith. He knew what that meant. Proof, not rumor, not story. Paper, real. Judith did not look at the book. She did not need to. "I wondered where you hid that," she said. Then her eyes narrowed just a touch. "You always were your father's daughter." That name hung in the room, unspoken, heavy. Clara did not look away. "He knew what you did," she said. Judith's face did not change. "He knew more than was good for him." There it was. Not denial, just a different version of truth. Elias felt the weight of that. Some people did not lie. They simply decided what counted. Clara's voice tightened. "You killed him." Quiet, direct, no shaking, no doubt. The room went still. Even the man with the rifle stopped shifting. Judith finally looked at the ledger, then back at Clara. "No," she said. "Your father chose the hard way, and hard choices have consequences." That was not the same thing. But it was close enough for people like her. Pike cleared his throat slightly. "This doesn't have to go further," he said. "Hand over the book." He was not asking. Elias could hear that. Clara held the ledger tighter. "This goes to the judge," she said. Judith gave a small, tired sigh, like a woman dealing with a child who would not understand. "There is no judge who will see it the way you think," she said. Clara heard her grandmother in that sentence as clearly as if Agatha herself had spoken it. That was the truth behind it all, not just power, control of how things were seen. Elias spoke for the first time in a while. "Then we let folks see it," he said. "Out in the open." Judith turned her head slowly toward him. "And you think that changes anything?" she asked. Elias did not answer. Because he did not know. But he knew one thing. Doing nothing changed nothing. Clara took a step forward. Pain hit her, but she did not stop. "People trusted my father," she said. "They'll listen." Judith's eyes hardened just a little. "Your father is gone," she said. "And people remember what they are told to remember." That was colder than anything she had said yet. Clara flinched, just a fraction, but Elias saw it. That was where the real damage lived, not in bruises, in years of being told what was true until you almost believed it. Elias stepped closer to Clara, not touching, just there, solid. She felt it, straightened a little, enough. Judith noticed that too. Her gaze moved between them, calculating. Then she spoke again. "Last chance," she said. "Give me the ledger." Silence filled the room. No one moved. No one blinked. Clara looked at Elias for a split second, not asking, not begging, just checking. He gave the smallest nod. That was enough. She turned back to Judith, and for the first time since this began, there was something new in her voice. Not fear, not pain, choice. "No," she said. That word changed everything. Pike's hand moved. The man with the rifle tensed, and outside the office, more footsteps had begun to gather. Not all of them friendly, not all of them theirs. Judith did not raise her voice, did not step forward, but something in the air snapped tight. Because now this was no longer about talk, no longer about taking her back quietly. Now it was about control. And control, once lost in a room like this, only came back one way. Elias shifted his stance just enough, ready, watching, waiting, because the next second would decide what kind of story this turned into, and whether they would walk out of that room at all. Nobody fired, not yet. That was the strange part. In a room full of tension, full of guns, full of reasons to end things fast, everything held for one last second longer than it should have, and sometimes that 1 second is where a life changes direction. Elias saw it first. Not in the guns, not in Pike, not even in Judith. He saw it in Clara. Her hands were still shaking. Her leg was barely holding her up. Her whole life had been pressed down, shaped, controlled, told what to be and what to believe. But she did not step back. She did not lower the ledger. She did not hand it over. And that mattered more than any gun in that room, because strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is just a person deciding, one time, not to bend. Elias took a slow breath. Then he moved, not fast, not sudden. He stepped forward just enough to close the space, put himself where the line would break first. And he spoke. Enough. One word, calm, certain. It did not sound like a threat. It sounded like a man who had already made up his mind. Pike hesitated, just a fraction. That was all it took. Clara stepped beside Elias, not behind him, beside him, and she lifted the ledger higher, not hiding it, showing it. "If anyone here still remembers my father," she said, her voice thin but steady, "then they remember what he stood for." No one spoke, but something shifted, not in Judith, not in Pike, in the space around them, because truth does not need to shout. It only needs one person willing to say it out loud, and one person willing to stand next to them when they do. Judith's eyes hardened. "You think this changes anything?" she said. Clara looked at her. "No," she answered. "I think it starts something." That was the difference. Control wants things finished. Truth only needs a beginning. Outside, voices began to gather. Footsteps. People. Not part of the plan, but drawn in anyway. That was how it always worked. You could control a room. You could control a name. But you could not control what people saw when a door stayed open too long. Pike noticed it. Judith noticed it. And for the first time, they were not the only ones deciding what came next. Elias lowered his rifle, not because it was over, but because it had become something else, not a fight to win, a moment to hold. Clara took one more breath, then another, and she did not fall. That was enough. She saw her father in that nod for one brief second, not in the face, but in the steadiness of it. Somewhere in that small room, power shifted. Not gone, not broken, but cracked. And cracks, once they start, do not close easy. The rest of the story would take time. Voices, questions, people choosing sides, truth moving slow like it always does. But it would move, because someone carried it out of the dark and into the light. Elias stepped back slightly, not leaving, just giving her space, because this was not his fight to finish. It was hers, and she was finally standing in it. Later, when the noise settled and the dust came down, people would remember this moment in different ways. But the truth was simpler than that. It was about a girl who had been told her whole life to stay quiet, and the one day she didn't, and a man who could have walked away, but didn't. By morning, enough of the town had heard to make silence harder than questions. The ledger did what guns could not. It forced names into the open. Deputy Pike could not hide behind the badge forever. Judith could not soften what she'd helped do, and Agatha Whitmore, for the first time in a long while, had to face a town that was no longer willing to look away, but it gave her something she had not had in a long time, a say in her own life, and Elias, who had spent years living like he owed the world nothing, found himself staying long enough to help her build something quieter and better than fear. And maybe this is where the story leaves Elias and Clara for the night, and lets the man telling it speak plain for a minute. Now let me say this, just as a man who has seen a few things in life, there comes a time when doing nothing feels safer, quieter, easier, but that is usually the moment that costs you the most later. I have learned that standing up once, even when your voice shakes, can change more than staying silent for years. And sometimes, helping one person's not about saving them. It is about refusing to become the kind of man who looks away. So I will ask you this. What would you have done if you were standing in that doorway? Would you have stepped aside, or would you have stayed? And if your answer makes you uncomfortable, maybe that is where your real story begins. If this story meant something to you, take a second and hit like and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this, the kind that stay with you a little longer than you expect. And I would really like to know, where are you listening from right now? And what time is it where you are? Sometimes that small connection matters more than we think. Now, one last thing. This story was gathered and retold with care, and a few details were shaped to bring the lesson closer and the telling home a little better. The images used here are AI made, meant only to carry the feeling of the story and help the moments land where words alone sometimes cannot. If this kind of story is not for you, that is all right. Set it down, get some rest, and take good care of yourself tonight. But if it stayed with you, leave me a comment. That is how I know which old roads are worth walking again.